he did to be for a few laps of the wet compounder.
Hello and welcome everybody to another GRL podcast. Last week we had a look on how the next season could potentially pan out, and now 1 week later we've just completed the Australian Grand Prix. And not only once or twice, we've actually done it 6 times because we've obviously had 6 divisions, and because of that, Panda and Fanta are here tonight to go through all the action from Division 1 all the way down to Division 6 and have a look how this first week actually went. So let's have a look at the Division 1 race first of all. So in Division 1, it actually was a wet to dry to intermediate race because it was a custom weather weekend, where it was the Alpine of Josh Rose taking the win in the end after starting from 10th place. Then we had Blade in second place, starting from 15th, and boosted up being third. He once again in the Red Bull like last season. Ranat then finishing P4 for Ferrari, with Sausage Joe in P5, GRL Dom in P6, Jay Snow in 7th, Gauzy in P8, Atta myself in 9th position, with Utz rounding out the top 10. Further finishes have been Evie Connor and Nardo, just ahead of Bran, who also picked up the fastest lap of the race. Looking at the driver standings, obviously nothing really is different to the race results, as the Australia was our season opener. So let's quickly hop over to the constructor standings of Division 1, where it's VCARB, the Racing Bulls, that lead the table with 27 points to their name, just 1 point ahead of the big sister team Red Bull Racing with 26 points. They themselves are only 1 point ahead of Alpine, who only had one driver finishing the race, with Josh Rose grabbing all 25 points for the race win. In fourth place now we have Ferrari with 14 points, 3 points ahead of Haas, and McLaren in P6 with 10 points, Sauber with 9, Mercedes with 8, Aston Martin with 1 point due to a penalty, otherwise it would have been 4 for them, and Williams then with 0 points, despite them winning the Constructors' Championship in Division 1 last season. They have not scored a single point now after Blade has left them. So certainly a good start to the season to the Honda-powered cars, and not the best for the ones with the Mercedes engine, as McLaren is the best one with the Mercedes engine in P6. Looking at the gaps as well, Josh Rose won in the end by 1.3 seconds ahead of Blade, but both of them starting very far down the order, which is not very usual, especially for a championship defender, basically. Blade starting from 15th. Reason for that was qualifying being dry to wet in the end, so you really had to make your first laps count to start near the front. Also, Evia Con and Nardo finishing 11th and 12th. They were leading for the most part of the race, but the rain towards the end of the race certainly hampered their progress. Looking at Division 2, we had a lot more success for Aston Martin, unlike in Division 1, because in Division 2 it was Wande who took P1 by 8.5 tenths from Tom Jem in the V Cup, who came second. So the defending Division 3 champion already making a name for himself in Division 2 as well. Neitholden rounding out the podium with a Haas starting from P11. Also, he was only 1.1 seconds off the race win. Rexy then finishing fourth in the Mercedes. He was fairly confident that he wouldn't do well in this tier, but already started off his campaign with a fourth place, so not too bad for him. Then in P5 we have Thomas de Koning in the Sauber, so he switched from Mercedes to Sauber, and also he was only 3 seconds off the win in the end, so good start for him. With TTR Ice Cream in P6, the reserve driver also picks up the fastest lap of the race. Cynthia, after penalty removal, comes P7. while our favorite North Korean driver, BRT Jobo, finishes in P8, ahead of Titley Louise in ninth, and Xander Wiles, the pole sitter, in P10. He's certainly eyeing up some good qualifying performances after already saying for him getting the most pole positions is more important than getting the most points. So we'll see how that goes in his season 7. Super Soldier then finishing in P11, so both Ferraris have crossed the line, same as the two McLarens. Jelly Belly, he retired with 1 lap to go actually, but he is still classified. As you can see in the strategies as well, the race started in full wet conditions, switching over to intermediates and then going to the slicks. People with the most pit stops here have been Beatty Job and Titley Louise, as they completed a wet inter medium soft or a double soft, so both of them on a 4 stopper. Looking at the driver standings once again, nothing really changes, but certainly interesting at the top of Wandy, Tom, and Nighthall, 3 drivers that have not been in Division 2 last season at all, so we don't really know what to expect from them. In the Constructors' Championship, Aston Martin, due to both of the drivers finishing with Wandy in P1 and Titley Lewis in ninth, they lead the way with 32 points from the Racing Bulls in second with 20 points. Haas then coming third with 16 points after this week, while Ferrari also have scored 16. So the extra point for the fastest lap for the reserve ice cream has been crucial for this weekend for the Scuderia. Mercedes then finishing in P5 after this week with 13 points, 1 point ahead of McLaren, who themselves only 1 point ahead of the Kick Sauber team. Alpine then currently sitting in 8th place with 9 points, 3 points ahead of Red Bull. And once again, like in Division 1, Williams have not scored a single point. So especially in the top divisions, it's not looking the best for the Williams team. In Division 3, we had a Mercedes 1-2 actually. After them not having the best of races, at the end, the switch from the dries to intermediates was crucial for midfield Maestro, who won the race, and his teammate Hayes, who is also the team owner of Mercedes. So she was only 8 tenths off the win herself. Case Baboudan, the French driver in the French car of the Alpine, finished P3, only 8 tenths off the win as well, while the debutant Turbos Toms has come P4 for Ferrari. Quell in P5 on his GRL return for Williams, so finally some points for the British racing team, while the driver that has been in the top 2 for most part of the race, FIFA Lord, only came P6. Benjamin then came 7th after being promoted to Division 3 just before the first round, so he had a solid race, 14.2 seconds off the race win in the end, while the reserve for Aston Martin, called Jesus, came P8, 1 place ahead of AJ Nolan and 2 ahead of Adam Spalding, as the Scotsman rounds out the top 10. AMS Lloyd and White Josh in the Saubers finished 11th and 12th, with Goreza in P13. He was also leading the race for quite some time, but sadly he switched to the to the slick, way too early, which cost him any chance on a good race result. In 14th place, and therefore last finisher, we've got Leader, who also picked up the fastest lap. So the Division 4 champion from last season has not had the best of runs. Retirements we've seen from Aram Lawn, Sean Matz, Wiffle, Gold Samurai, Clever, and Eric. In the Constructors' Championship, obviously Mercedes lead the way after they won 2. They are 25 points ahead of Alpine, who sit in second place. VCAP then sit in P3 after double top 9 finish, with Ferrari in 4th place and Williams in 5th, being level on points with Aston Martin. In P7, we've got McLaren with 9 points, 1 point ahead of Sauber, Asa 9th, and the only team not to score any points with Eric and our Wiffle this week was Red Bull Racing. So they've got some comeback on the hands for the next few weeks. Yeah, now we're slowly getting into the lower divisions now, so I'll hand that over to Panda, who'll have a look at Division 4 and 5.
Yeah, we got to obviously leave Div 6 for the slowest guy in this call, Mr. Fanta. But going through Div 4 real quick, you got Asthma Frog from PA who gets the win. Looks like a pretty simple race, just a bit of water to nice and moist right at the end. Lee Zirconium 3.6 off of him. Historic another 3 seconds back. Then Baltir, Bashi, Yasin, King, Trusted, Juice, Lexus, Cod, Sphinx, Koi, Kevin, Rystar, Peter, Waddington, Man in the Box. Just looking at Man in the Box's strategy was quite interesting there. But looking at this finishes, I think this is the most finishes the tiers have had so far. So to go through the DNFs, you got Morgan, Hughes, Snake, and Liam. To quickly go through the standings, obviously Asthma Frog at the top of the drivers, obviously that's just going to be the same, but the constructors from that finish, and you've got Aston Martin at the top, 9 points ahead of Racing Bulls, Ferrari, then Mercedes, Alpine, Sauber, Red Bull, Williams, McLaren, and Haas on -7, which is quite an achievement already after the first round. So I'm sure Braincore will be very pleased with that. Now, to quickly go on to Div 5, I can't click on it. I myself win with just a small gap of 18 seconds from pole to win. And then Ionizer, Darko Wade, Slow as Duck, Uctus, Stoobsy, Braincore, Echo, another F1 YouTuber, Spears, Calablu, Mike Reed, Reveler, RJ, Bob, Litim, and then the non-finishers of Brownest Buns, Graham, and Monopole Monster. Of not too much of a point to go through the standings. It will just be the same. But the constructors, me and Rev are leading it by just 2 points to the Racing Bulls. Then Williams with their highest position before going through Div 6 out of all the tiers right now in P3. Then Alpine in 4th, McLaren 5th, Haas in 6th, Red Bull 7th, Ferrari 8th, Aston Martin 9th, and Mercedes in 10th. So, Mr. Fanta, if you also want to go through Div 6,
Yeah, so we had on pole position, we had, if I can load it, we had Beetle, who, when it was a full wet race, completely saturated wet the whole race. We then had the finishers of Vinky, not Vinky, MJ coming in first, leading the race for majority of it. His teammate then following up in the other Aston Martin, 9.3 seconds off to lead Vinky. Throne Globe, a reserve, taking the third. Myself taking the fourth. Jeremy for the Williams coming in fifth. We had Antoine, I don't know, coming in sixth. We had Tullo coming in seventh, come third on the grid. We had Golden Wolf coming in eighth. Punty Plays in ninth, Toast GB in 10th, Gentry 11th, Beetle 12th after a 20-second time penalty. Not ideal for him taking the pole and then finishing 12th. Scion finishing 13th, Stray Dog racing in the Haas, Nicholas, who is now no longer racing, in 15th. Vintage Control in 16th, my teammate Boltzler is 17th, Sparky in 18th with Messi and Abhishek retiring. Looking at the standings being obviously the same, the constructors, Aston Martin with their 1-2 on 46 points, and I think they got the fastest lap as well, so they also get an extra point for that. McLaren 27 points off in 19, Racing Bulls on 17, Williams in fourth with 16, myself and Boltzlinger in the Sauber in fifth, Ferrari in 11th, Red Bull in 10th, Alpine in 8th, Haas in ninth, and Mercedes in 10th.
yeah, well, thank you, good sir. Now, back to good old traditions. We flame and we praise some drivers. for the most impressive and the what we would somewhat class as disappointments, but obviously sometimes it's a little bit harder because especially with me and Fanta, we race at the same time as the other five. The other four divs, so the only ones we can sometimes watch, but most of the time don't anyway, is Div 1. So I will start off just simply going off of grid 2 finishing position. For me, I'm going to go with Vinky for Div 6 just because it seems like he was able to manage it well in the rain, get through the traffic, and just keep it calm behind his teammate. His teammate, though, did get a good gap, so I'd say it's between MJ and Vinky, who are my top for the most impressive. And the disappointments, I would have to say, are Beetle and Scion. Obviously, I'd actually go McMessy and Beetle. I think Scion's a different one now. I don't think they're the same person. Adam, if you could just give me some clarification, please.
Who's Sion and
Scion and McMessy, they're
different people?
different. McMessy's the one that was with
The
us
Red
last
Bull.
season. Was my
McMessy,
teammate at
yeah.
the start
Was
of.
your teammate, and then
Yes, yeah. So I would have to say disappointment would definitely be McMessy. I obviously am not 100% sure what led to his DNF, but just alone qualifying 15th when you would think if he's in Div 6, he should be one of the people up there. Same as Beetle, but Beetle obviously got pole. Even without his 20 seconds, though, he still only finished 5th.
fifth. Yeah.
So I I'd say it's between them two. Not too much of a disappointment. Obviously, Beetle with the unfortunate little reset to track. Probably, I think he's new, so might not have known it was a penalty. But just then going off of that, McMessy would definitely be my top disappointment. Fanta, obviously you drove in this, so who would you say surprised you and who?
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather call it the winners and the losers of each tier. I think winner of the tier has probably got to be Vinky. I know he was 9 seconds off his teammate, but 14th to second on the grid. He, just played the strategy really well. MJ did have a solid race. He did control the field for kind of the majority of said race. And there was at times I was battling up the top with him as well, and it was clean. But I'd probably say it's got to be just in general the two Aston Martins are definitely the winners of Tier 6, and I think their team owner will be very happy. Losers, I'd probably say Tullo possibly as well. Tullo was up there as well. I think it was Tullo, correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, that got held up in the pits when I did as well.
Yeah, Kick
It,
Sauber master plan.
it cost both of us quite drastically. Or I'd probably say Beetle as well, having that 20-second time penalty. I know it was only fifth, but after getting pole to drop to fifth and then drop to 12th, yes, it was a reset to track, but you take fault for your actions. That is a bit of a L, I guess. Um, but yeah, I'd probably say there's not a real defined loser. I'd definitely say though that the Astons are on top and had a great start to the season.
And Mr. League owner,
Yeah,
your words carry a lot here, so praise your boys.
yeah, I tend to agree. The Astons obviously have had a great week, and as you said, Vinky has had a great recovery drive from his qualifying position. But I think for me, the biggest win has certainly been the race winner of It's Me MJ because qualified second and Beatles lap was massive. I think it was 9 tenths
Mm.
margin.
I think it was 8 or 9 tenths
Uh,
quicker.
so it didn't really look that close. He picked up the fastest lap and he won the race by basically 10 seconds. So I think that's going to be a massive boost at the start of the season for him. Um, Maybe looking at my V Cups as well. Puller, obviously, he got hurt in the end there with the double stacking of the kick hours because Boltslinger was like, I'm gonna serve all my penalties now. Which boxed Tuller in the pits, but looking at the
Me,
pure pace, he looked very, very good. And I told him as well that it will only get better. I mean, obviously that's very unlucky, but that's not gonna happen weekly. And yeah, I think he also had good pace, so that's that. Losers obviously Beetle. That's obvious. If you're on pole by 9/10, I mean, of course you can struggle in the race, and these drivers will probably be better in qualifying than the race, but you shouldn't really drop down to 12th. Like a top five has to happen there for sure. And yeah, I mean, you mentioned Sion and Make Messi. I think most people are kind of where you expect them. I probably expected more from Genchi, who finished 11th. He's only qualified 10th, but before the season, he was kind of called a massive championship contender. And yeah, to start it this way with, I think, 19 seconds of time penalties, I mean, that's not how you want to start, nor how you want to act as the team owner of Williams. So yeah, I think from those few drivers that are my winners and my losers.
Okay, and Fanta, if you want to start us off in Div 5.
I think in Div 5, the biggest winner obviously has to be yourself. An 18-second advantage, like you're good in the wet, but that is something else. To be that quick in the wet and to take the pole as you did, and then continue that into the race is very impressive. I'd probably say other winners: Uctus 12th to 5th, pretty good as well. Spears 17th to 10th. It's better, 7 improvement. You got Color Blue 18th to 11th. But I think the standout has to be yourself. Obviously, Galaxy Irons as well, 8th to 2nd. Darko Wade, who I predicted to be a dark horse, 7th to 3rd. But yeah, losers. I think Brownist is a bit of a loser in this scenario. 11th, it's kind of mid qualifying to DNF. We've seen what he can do. He has his ups and downs, his spits and spats, but to DNF on the first race of the season, I think he got points in the end. I'm not too sure.
No,
No, he was out of the points, wasn't
yeah.
he, anyway, yeah. But yeah, or the only other loser I could possibly think of, maybe Bob, qualifying 5th. I know he got the fastest lap and the last point as well, but he was a big favourite for this season. um, and obviously for myself personally, a loser would also be Revelo, knowing what he used to be like. This isn't the showing that we kind of expected, trying to bring his pace back up for Div 5. So hopefully he can hit the ground running in the next few races, same as the likes of Bob and Brownist, and then continue on from there.
Yeah, well, I don't want to, self-glaze, but I would have to agree an 18-second gap is something.
It's unreal. It's
But
crazy. It's real life Max Verstappen
it
Brazil.
was
Let's be honest.
the rain. It is literally, I go into every single race, whereas like maybe even like you load up a race and you're like, there is actually a chance of rain. I'm sitting there praying for it because for whatever reason in the rain I can just cook. But I would have to say that the other winner is 100% in my eyes Uctus. He was able to manage it, get through up there. I think he timed his pit stop the best. I think he was the first one to go in for the Inters, if I'm right, and it got him up there a few places. Um, Biggest loser is someone you obviously I don't think you watched. There was no stream, so you wouldn't have known. For me,
No.
it's got to be Graham. Graham was
Yeah.
sitting there behind me. That 18-second gap was not 18 seconds most of the race. It was around 11 or 12. Graham, as soon as he got onto them inters, was the exact same pace as me. For whatever reason, on the wets, I pulled the gap. But as soon as he got onto the inters, he was matching me. He was doing well, and then had issues with fuel saving to where he was having to lift in coast and lose so much time that he sat there waiting for it. He wasn't gaining much fuel back. I think he said he sat there waiting right until the last possible point a safety car could come out and then just retired because he knew he wouldn't make it to the end of the race. So for me, it'd have to be Graham or my teammate because, like you said, we used to race with him back in the good old days, and he was way up there. But for his first race back, some points and an alternate strategy from everyone else. I don't know why it says Calablu and another F1 YouTuber didn't pit again. I believe Rev was the only one that stayed on the wets, and it didn't work out in the end because it was meant to go wet, very wet to just wet and then very wet again. So I think he was praying that the very wet was a lot earlier than was, but for him,
Is Graham, who I think it might be, is that
that's the one with
Islam?
the Islam
Yeah.
Makachev picture, yeah. So we
Yeah,
love
the
Graham.
ship.
We love Graham. He's got great knowledge. If you like UFC, you're instantly a goat, and yeah. So I looking at this, I will just also say in there the 18 seconds makes it seem a lot more, but I think it will be a great little
You're
battle
gonna
for the
lose by
championship.
18 seconds next
Nah,
week.
I think looking at the pace, slow as duck. If we also just sit here and make a prediction, slow as duck is winning next week. That's all I'm gonna say. And if I'm
I
wrong,
mean,
I'm wrong.
I
But
mean, it's crazy, isn't it? It was raining, and the duck would have surely had the best downfalls in this
yeah,
weather.
yeah.
But
Um, I'm only saying this as well because I've actually had inside information. We did a little practice session together, and he was about a tenth or so quicker than me in quali. So I definitely see slow as duck being a good chance for next week. But Adam, now that you have returned, winners and losers for Div 5, sir.
yeah, I don't even know who you picked, so this is great now. So I can fully expose myself. Yeah, I mean, first one is obvious. I think you kind of certainly smashed it this week. You're the clear winner. I mean, 18 seconds winning margin is massive. And you've basically ticked all the boxes compared to last season when you had the chance to win the first race.
It was
And you were like,
redemption.
safety car, no, I won't pit.
Yeah. It was my
20
redemption
lap
mark.
hold hard, yes, come on, we go to them to the end. Uh, this time everything was fine. I think there wasn't a safety car, so you had it a bit easier.
Yeah.
Didn't have to do those
Um,
triples.
yeah, but really great drive. From what the data tells, obviously no stream, which you'll try to fix. But yeah, that's how a season can be started, I guess. So now it all comes down slowly to the consistency, obviously, but after a few rounds, it's easier to tell. But yeah, I think just how you want to start a season. Positive surprise. I'm usually going for a second. This is now getting a bit harder. I could I mean, I would like to go for Darker Wade, but I would lie if I said I didn't expect him to be near the top. So I'd probably say Galaxy Ironser. He was in Division 3 at the end of last season, and only thing I remember of him is taking someone out. So I think finishing P2 is fairly decent for him. I also talked to him. He said he's really happy. And that his quality was the issue, but due to the rain, he could salvage some 20 points there. So that's good for him, and also for Williams because, as we said, they struggled in the higher divisions. Um, Probably Uktas was also a good driver there. Disappointments. To be honest, looking back at how the standings were in Division 4 last season, I think Brain Core should have not been 50 seconds off the pace and should have, yeah, he should have been expected to be in the top 5 for sure, just because how many points he scored last season. Obviously, no, his core pace is not the highest, but still, I think you should be a lot closer to the green machine in P1. Um, Another disappointment is ARL Bob, I think, because we saw what ARL Bob at times could do last season in Division 4, that he had some really good results. But now to finish 15th and almost 2 minutes off the winner is certainly a bit too much. So Bray has really got to look at his team also here in Division 5 to really get the most out of his drivers. Otherwise, it will be a very difficult season also in the overall constructors. So yeah, that's my winners and losers.
Okie dokie. Great stuff. I'll move us on to Div 4. For my winners, I think I'm just going to go straight, just looking at it, and I think I've seen mine straight away is Zirconium. Going from 16th to second in what looks like some awful conditions near the end is very, very good. It's a great drive. Uh, I don't know if I can see anyone else that would be a stand out as a winner. No, I'll go straight on to losers, and I'm gonna have to say Sphinx for someone who came into this round one as I believe he was Pat. I think he might have been someone's prediction to win the drivers. Qualifying second, though, is pretty decent, but then at the end of the race, only being able to manage a P11 is still good points, but he'll definitely want to look at that and move on and get better for Silverstone. Another one I would say is Kevin. I rated Kevin quite high for this div, and qualifying 18th and only finishing 13th is a bit shocking from him because I know he can do better. He can be up there with probably the likes of Juice and Lexus, 100% Lexus. So yeah, it will be interesting to see this lot going through. You've got quite a few people that I think should have been higher up that are quite low. You got Rystar, Pat, Liam, but yeah, that's it. Fanta Doodles.
I'd probably say the winner for me again would probably has to be Zirconium. Um, as you said, 16th to second when it looks like shit hit the fan quite literally in the final few laps of the race. I can't really see anyone else that really done well. I guess Juice 15th to 8th. It's an improvement and it's some valid points for the Red Bull. Going on to my loser, yeah, I'd have to agree Sphinx. Obviously, 9 positions lost from second on the grid down to 11th. Or again, 9 positions lost from sixth on the grid down to 15th would be Pat, picking up the last points paying position. But still, for both of them to lose 9 points when they're off of this track, top six of the best in terms of the qualifying. Okay, it was in the wet, but to drop both 9 points down to the current positions of 11th and 15th, it's not what you want for the start of the season. You want to start strong, but again, there is plenty of season left, so hopefully they can push on and keep up.
Atom.
Yeah, I mean, you already mentioned Zirconium. I mean, amazing drive. I really wonder how he's managed to qualify 16th with that much race pace. So, but he'll be happy for sure. I mean, both Aston Martins did well. Uh, I mean, you already also on the downside said like Sphinx was a disappointment. I mean, looking at his position drop for sure, someone's that just disappointed me looking at that strategy is Lexus. I mean, I've got no clue what he was on about because that is not the optimal race strategy. Because I feel like he spent over a minute in the pit lane with these amounts of pit stops. That's what a five stopper. And you certainly do not have 4 sets of full wets on a weekend.
How
So
long
one
is
of them must have
the
been
pit
used.
lane? It's like 18, isn't it, for Australia?
Yeah, it's 18
So
seconds of 5. Yeah, about
36.
90 seconds probably spent in the pit lane. Um, so yeah, that's that. Another disappointment for me is probably our runner-up from this division last season, Pat in 15th. Of course, he qualified sixth, which is usually a bigger problem, like qualifying in these sports. But and I know he's come back late before the race, so not really a lot of practice. But I think still from starting P6, you've got a lot better opportunities than finishing P15. So yeah, just see the downfall of the former Mercedes team principle. But yeah, I mean he'll have to certainly step up his game because this grid is a lot more complete, I think, than last season's Division 4. Because the drivers are a lot closer. Um, Another positive surprise to top it off probably could be Xtoric. Qualified 10th, came third. Actually finished second, but got a post-race penalty. but especially racing all of these drivers, it showed that he's got a lot of pace under him. And yeah, hopefully it could be a good season also for the Alpine driver. While his teammate Kevin didn't have the best of races, so that will also be a good battle to have a look on between the Dutchman and the Polish driver. So yeah, that's my verdict kind of on Div 4.
Okie dokie. On to Div 3. Um, I'm going to just start us off and say Hayes, because I believe her herself, she was saying she didn't have much faith in herself going into this with the newer and quicker people that are here. But to qualify 13th, manage the pit stops well for the conditions, and then get up to second. That's a cracking performance from her. Um, and it honestly looks like everyone did pretty well here. There doesn't seem to be like a straight up person that you could predict, like pick, sorry, that you could call uh someone that had an unfortunate rate. I mean, our Whiffle, I'd just guess. I don't know what happened, but fourth to DNF. But just looking at the finishing order, everyone seems to be nearish, apart from Gareza there. I've just noticed first to 13th, so I think I'd go for him for the loser or disappointment, whatever you want to call it, of Div 3, and we'll swap it around this time. Adam, you want to go second?
Yeah, I mean, I watched that race back from Division 3, which was obviously broadcasted by Rage Quit, and what I found very interesting in that race was the Mercedes. They were nowhere, both of them. They were like 9th and 11th for the most part of the race until they made a random call on the safety car to switch onto the Inters, where the rain eventually fell down. So, yeah, obviously they are winners in one way just because they've got a 1-2, they've got the points and the result in the bag. But it was a big gamble from them. So I would like to call another like winner alongside them, in my opinion, is Torba Tom finishing fourth. I know he started in third, so he dropped the position, but it's been his first race in the league and he's done really well. He's led most parts of the race, so him and FIFA Lord in the dry were the quickest drivers. So I think he had a lot of pace there to this week and I hope to see him near the top again. So because if it's mostly dry for the next few sessions, because we head now to Silverstone and then to Canada, Mexico, um, like Canada, and Mexico, fairly dry usually, and I think Silverstone, with 6 tiers, will also have a fairly good chance on being dry. That he can do well. So I think he'll certainly be one to keep an eye out for. Um, Losers, I would potentially say AJ Nolan. I know he gained 5 positions, so 14th to 9th, but I expect him to be a lot closer to the top positions. To seem that for our FIFA Lord is a bit concerning. Obviously, nothing just yet. I'm aiming to do as a team principal myself. I think that's something that's got to be worked on. I know Silverstone is a good track for him, but that will certainly be a season start he would have not liked to have. And yeah, I mean, you mentioned Goreza's disappointment. I mean, I think he got wing damage after actually leading the race and pitting a bit too early from Inter's two dries mid race, which cost him big time. But I think Goreza has got a lot of pace like Torbatom, and he'll certainly be a very be a big factor in the next two races, like Tom. So I think those two in particular are very interesting in the next few weeks. So yeah.
Fanta?
Yeah, I mean, touching on what you both said, I think the two Mercedes overall would probably be the winners. Um, Hayes, obviously 13th to second, would probably be my overall. I watched a few clips of the parts of the stream in for Div 3, and yeah, I mean, Hayes doing an extra stop and still finishing 8 temps behind her teammate, really good. Um, obviously, as you said, it was a big gamble they took. Realistically, we're in no man's land, getting the kind of mid-table points for the team, and it's clearly worked out from this race. Would it work out on another day in another tier in another league? We don't know. But for at the first round, you can't really do much better than that. Losers, on the other hand, um, I'd probably say for me personally, it'd be more leader. I know he only qualified 12th, and it's a new division for him, obviously after winning Division 4 last season. Um, I would have just expected him to have been a little bit more competitive. Again, I don't know. I didn't really pay attention to if he got any wing damage, instance, etc. But I personally would have almost liked to have seen him a little bit higher up, and a little bit closer, as he finishing 20 seconds behind the next car in front of him. Obviously, as you said, Gareza, who again is a bit of a loser, unfortunately, from qualifying first to then coming to 13th. Not ideal for the both of them, but yeah, for me, more leader 20 seconds off of just the car in front of him, let alone the 47 seconds that he was off of the lead. Um, that's not ideal, but hopefully he can, as you said, come into the next few rounds. Not as much potential for rain. Obviously, Silverstone depends what the British weather system's deciding it wants to do. It will be interesting going forward with all of them.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Um, on to the Division DOS. Um, you're gonna have to start us out. I'm gonna have to scout this. I can't see anything here. I think this is one of the more well-rounded ones we've looked at.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the disappointment here, which is probably not too surprising, but that for me is Xander Wiles in 10th. I mean, he got pole, where he apparently got majorly blocked, but didn't really hamper him too much, did it? Got pole in the end. Was also no further action in the end, as the stewards decided. But I mean, yeah, Xander is a specific type of driver. Um, more leaning more towards one lap pace for sure. I mean, he even himself said he prefers getting pole positions over world championship, which I think is a very special attitude towards the season ahead, because I think winning races is basically what most racing drivers do aim for. So yeah, I mean, he also didn't have the best of races. Actually, a contact with one of my V carbs as well, which he was not very happy with, I would assume. So yeah, he's my disappointment. I think he just needs to get some better racecraft, and then he can probably challenge for wins, podiums. But it's just like the Ferraris in the last few years, apart from this one in real life, where they qualified high up, but they were just dropping down because they didn't have the race pace. So that is obviously unfortunate because it also frustrates you as a driver. Um, Winners for me is actually quite simple. For me, that's second and third with Tom and Night Owl. I mean, they've come up from Division 3. Tom I knew was quick. Um, and also in practice, he was really putting in the time to figure out what to do to get the best possible outcome for his season opener. A very active member in our team, so yeah, not too surprised myself, obviously, that he's gotten a podium, but very happy that it worked out, and I'm sure he'll try his best to keep that number one on his car. And also Night Owl, I mean, he had, I think, a broken controller at the end of last season in Division 3, so he lost out on that championship. He was originally ahead of Tom, I think. And yeah, now he's back. Came P3, 1.1 seconds off the win in the end. And after all, they were fighting a Wandy who was in Division 1 last season, so they both of them did a really, really good job. Yeah, maybe one more disappointment for me is, I'm sorry, but Cynthia qualified second, came P7 after penalty removal. So yeah, I expected him to start his season a little bit better. I know he was stuck behind Rexy for a long part of that race, but that shouldn't be an excuse if you're aiming to fight for the championship. So yeah, I think he'll have to grind a bit more in the next 2 weeks to make up for that already big points loss in round one.
Yeah, I'll probably have to second your disappointment there with Zander pole to 10th. It's probably some unlucky circumstances that put him down there, but you would expect a little bit more. And not 100% sure if I'm right on this, but Night Owl going from Div 3 to 2 and getting a podium straight away, I think that's got to be the winner in my eyes. I think being able to keep the similar sort of pace he had last season in a different tier into this season is something that not many drivers have been able to do. Um, like Mr. Pat Peter, much love, but he had to catch a stray there. But yeah, Fanta.
Yeah, I mean, doubling up on what you guys said about winners, I mean, Night Owl and I believe it was Tom you said that also came up from Division
Yeah,
2 Atom. To finish 8 temps, obviously for Tom off of Wandy from Div 1 and Night Owl only 1.1 off of Wandy as well is pretty impressive. Again, as Panda said, finishing, you look at the likes of Pat, didn't have a great race. Obviously, again, we mean nothing like against anyone, but for that race in general, for Pat, obviously dropping down, popping up a division and not exactly performing. You look at the likes of More Leader popping up a division, not exactly performing. Um, these two have clearly hit the ground running. Whether that can continue, obviously, this race with the changing conditions. They basically used every kind of tyre you could use of the extremes, the inters, and then also onto the slicks. It's quite good. It's very impressive. So obviously, Night Owl for me more than anything, 11th to 3rd in a new division with again very competitive drivers is quite a feat. My losers, I'd probably have to again say Xander Wiles. I know he kind of raves about the fact that he wants to just get every pole basically this season. Doesn't really care if he finishes about championship points. Don't know what Koyi will think about that as the Red Bull team owner, but that's his driver to deal with. Um, Again, Stintium 2nd to 7th. He didn't seem too disappointed by it, but I think he will be because I think obviously qualifying second, he would have liked to have got probably at least the top three, if not try and push for the win of the race, especially with Xander basically not caring. Um, so it kind of leaves that if Xander was first, doesn't care, then it's not
yeah.
on
I
it's
mean,
on everyone else to get the win. I think as well for me, Jelly Belly as well, qualifying sixth, finishing 12th, sixth position loss, but to be a lap down and be lapped, that's a little bit of it's a bit over the top for me personally to finish a lap down when you qualified in the top six is it's quite crazy personally I find, but obviously I don't know what happened in the race. He could have had loads of incidents. He could have had 50 seconds worth of stop goes. We don't know.
yeah. I mean, also maybe because we've obviously focused on the finishes. Brushy Pancakes and Rob Kelly were like the favorites on the draft to win the championship alongside the people with Sintim and Thomas we knew from Div 2. They've both retired, so I think you can put them into that disappointment range as well. Because I mean, we've obviously, as I said, only looked at the finishes right now where they came, but they at least reached the checkered flag. Well,
Yeah,
those two didn't.
Rob Kelly's
So
from
yeah,
Div 1. Where was Brushy Pancakes Div 2 or Div 1 last season?
he was Div 1 and did the last race of last season in Div 2, but was Div 1 before.
Yeah, again, so obviously looking outside of the finishers that actually, as we said, reached the checkered flag, Rob Kelly and Brushy Pancakes dropping down a division and not hitting the ground running, it makes the likes of Tom and Night Owl coming up just look even more outstanding personally.
Yeah, well, Atom, if you want to lead us straight into your own division.
Yeah. As an ambulance car passes by, well, that was a difficult call in that Division One race. Um, because the field obviously split up for once in a season. There is no massive DRS train around Australia. Um, as a positive, without wanting to sound arrogant, I think I did a fairly good job because I lost 6 seconds down to double stacks. And if you remove 5 or 6 seconds of my delta time, I'd be fourth. But
Sounds like
that's that.
excuses.
Yeah, that is. I pitted twice, and twice was played ahead of me, and twice was played in the pit box. So that was not fortunate. But yeah, looking at the other drivers, I think obviously Blade did well, but to be honest, I would be lying if I said that was surprising. I think Sausage Joe overall had a lot of pace. We've not got the strategies here just yet, but I think he started on the full wets, then went to the inters, while all the other drivers started on the intermediates to switch over to the slicks and then to the inters again at the end. So I think Sausage Joe had a lot of pace, more than expected. And to do an extra pit stop and still come out there in P5, I think is something that will make him and his team fairly happy. Um, a disappointment on the other side, and I think there is no excuse there really, is Exotic Planes, the runner up from last season. He retired after crashing out at turn one after a few laps. Completely on his own, that was, I believe, which is fairly rare. To be honest, I've never seen him just lose the car in general. So, yeah, that's not a great season start for him. And maybe other names you can put in the Evia Con and Nado. I mean, it was raining already, and everyone pitted for the intermediates, whether that was under VSC or green flags, and those two just stayed out. But like, yeah, Bill reached the checkered flag before, and they just with 2 laps to go, they were in outside the top 10. So I think that was a wrong strategy call. Like we saw in D3, it went perfect for the Mercedes, and here went just absolutely awful for the two leaders. So that's that. And maybe also one driver we should name after Division 1 has been upgraded again with some drivers boosted on the podium again. So he's keeping Red Bull up there with his results. So that's also a well done to him. He's had also a really good race.
Yeah, I think I'll start off and agree with your disappointments of Nardo and Connor. Uh, just didn't play the strategy right. Um, and again, the other one you said, Exotic Planes being a runner-up, and then if you're saying he lost it on his own, that's even worse. That's more embarrassing. But he will probably come back for the next few races and make us eat our words. So anyway, on to the winners. Just going off of once again qualifying to race position because I don't watch the streams. Uh, Sausage Joe probably 17th to 5th is a good little showing, and Blade 15th to 2nd is also quite impressive for him. I'm only 1.3 off of the leader, so he was close. He probably could have had it. Everyone can say this. Oh, I could have had it if there were a few more laps, but to start 15th and only be 1.3 off of Josh Rose is a great showing. And Fanta, if you want to end us off on the winners and losers front.
Yeah, I mean, again, for me, I haven't watched the stream, so it'd be grid to finish in position. I think Sausage Joe, obviously, to double up on what you both said, 17th to 5th, really well. Only a second off of fourth. To start from that 17th, when you look at Runnard, who started second and finished fourth, that's quite a good accomplishment. Obviously, Blade, we've spoke about last season's winner, so 15th to second, and as you said, 1.3 off of Josh Rose. That's quite a good feat as well. Josh Rose himself, 10th to first, must have played the strategy right, picked his moves when he so wished for them. Didn't get involved in any incidents. It's pretty good. Again, taking me on to the losers of, as you guys have explained, Exotic Planes, 16th, last season's runner-up. Didn't play the strategy right, obviously. Spun himself out completely on his own. It's not really the ideal way to start when you're trying to have a little bit of a comeback season. Obviously, Blade being a kind of formidable force in general, trying to overcome that last season, you wanted to start off a bit better than what he did. Connor obviously qualifying first to 11th, 10 position loss, not ideally what you want off the first race. Same as Nardo, 9th to 12th. Obviously, in general, going backwards is never ideal, but at least they was able to still bring some points to the start of the season. I think another one for me that's been unnamed would probably be CRE Alfie, 5th to a DNF. Not sure. Adam might be able to give some more kind of context.
Yeah,
Did he finish
Atlantic, like
75% or?
yeah, I mean the on turn 6, the quick right-hander at the start of sector 2, I think he simply lost the car. So the Williams boys certainly got some debris laying around now in the Albert Park. So I think it was just mainly down to driver error. Alfie also had penalties from what I remember. So I think Alfie had actually 9 seconds, if my memory serves me right. So there were never going to be, after Exotic retired, big points for Williams on the board because Alfie was only around 8th anyway.
Yeah.
And Exotic was like, Exotic got passed by me, and then I didn't see him anymore. So he was around 17th. So they really did not have a great week.
Yeah, but I think boosted as well has to have an honourable mention. 8th to 3rd, kind of clambering up the points, clambering up the table to the points for Red Bull, and GRL Dom, obviously 6th to 6th. It's still viable points. Did they top the constructors after this weekend, or was it yourselves or Alpine?
Was V Cub, I think, 1 point ahead of Red Bull. So
Yeah, so for Blade getting second, Booster getting third, obviously, it's the teammate that also assists with you in that. So Dom pulling up to sixth as well, holding that position from his qualifying also helped the Red Bull. So I think good start for them as well.
Yeah, so that's been the winners and losers. Again, if you watch it and you've been called a loser, there's no hatred unless someone calls Fanta a loser. That's just pure facts and it's deserved. Um, but oh, hello. Going on to OCC now. We've not looked at this, and this is what we're going to end off on. Racing Bulls, obviously under the stewardship of the owner, so everyone can already start claiming it's rigged. Are in the lead by 5 points, followed by Aston Martin, who are then 43 points ahead of Alpine. Mercedes follow them 6 points behind, tied on points with Sauber and Ferrari. So a cheeky little three-way tie there for fourth. Wonder who will be ending on top at the end of round two. And then you've got McLaren on 63, Red Bull on 60. And despite Williams having 0 points, I think, in Div 1 and 2, still managing to not be last with Haas being down there. So I feel like the Williams Genchi, that's him, should still have a little bit of faith considering he didn't get many points up top in the higher divisions and is still ahead of a singular team. But yeah, Atom, what do you think? How's this going to be shaping up? Do you think we're going to be seeing the same names in the same places, or could it be completely shaken up after round two?
I mean, it's so difficult to tell. I mean, I remember last season Red Bull had the lead themselves to second by like 40 points because they scored over 100. I mean, in 40 years, over 100 was a massive score. Um, and then we know they were like over 100 points off Mercedes in the end. So it's really about the consistency, and I think what people have not really realized that much as it is, the double headers will be so important with 6 tiers. If you've got most drivers in the point scoring positions, they'll be so much more important, and making a move for first might not be worth it in an OCC point of view, because we've got a 5 points gap rather than a 7 points gap between first and second. So, as you said, Williams can have some faith because Bray is absolutely tempted with his P10 finish in the OCC right now again. But I think Williams obviously has to improve on that, and they will. I'm sure Alfie and Exotic will do a lot in Division One. Will score many points. Plus, I've also said that they will win the constructors in Division One. So I would hope they do that, or like maybe finish second behind us. But still, I think Williams has to improve, or has even more. Red Bull, well, I think they've got a good team. Maybe not top tier, but they've certainly got a good team, which should be enough for a top five. McLaren, and yes, McLaren, I said, I think that I do not think they've got the best of teams, so I'm not too surprised they are there. But we'll see. Ferrari, we all said they look awful. Well, they've scored, I think, 3 pole positions this week that they couldn't quite put it all together in the race. But they look a lot better after the first race than most of us would have thought. The Saubers and the Mercedes look solid. And the Alpines as well. They got hurt a bit with penalties, I think. But I think it's fairly impressive the gap VCarb and Aston Martin have right now. 40 points after round one is very, very strong. Aston Martin had a lot of top positions with like podiums and stuff, like 1D1 Division 2 that I want to in Div 6. I don't know quite what they did in Division 5, but they're good results. And after the week up, we had one driver not in the top 9. So here it was more the consistency because we had, I think, 2 podiums overall. Three. Still a lot of silverware, but yeah, I think it looks after one round, certainly between a battle of VCAB and Aston Martin, and the others have catching up to do.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give it to Aston Martin. Believe it's Etnaval, first time team owner for them, and after round one to be 5 points off of the lead and with a healthy gap to third, he definitely did his scouting for the draft because that is a great showing after round one. And if he can keep it up and mount a charge for the OCC title in his first season as a team owner, that would be certainly impressive. So, unless you have anything to add to the OCC fan now, I think that'll be everything from us.
Yeah, I mean, there's only a few bits. Obviously, Mercedes, Ferrari, and Sauber all tied. I think it's going to be an interesting battle to see if any of them can push on. I know they're only 6 points behind Alpine. So technically, if you want to include Alpine in them four, see if any of them four can mount a charge to Aston and the RBs. Um, Obviously, the Ferraris gave us a bit of a shock. Obviously, we weren't exactly pinning them for our top five, would I say? But they're right in there for that challenge. Um, the Hasses of Braincore. I mean, he said he had a plan before the beginning of the season. I know it's only round one, but I don't really see the plan as of yet. So hopefully that can develop for him. If not, it looks like it's going to be a pretty poor season from him. Williams, I think they'll come back slowly but surely. Quite a few DNFs, I believe. And then obviously with the Red Bulls, I don't think that's what Coy would want. Touching on what Adam said about last season, having the points gap at the start, they eventually did bottle it. So hopefully they can push on this season. I think Coy wants a bit of redemption to kind of say, look, I am the real Christian Horner, but I don't really know if that will come off with the results that they've got so far. So we'll have to see. It is only round one. The table could completely flip come, round 7. So we'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
I think what maybe we should add after last week, because we just said how great Ed Neville and Aston Martin did. I said Aston Martin will be closest to the real life performance, and a certain Restore Panda said Aston Martin will finish bottom of the OCC. So I think that has already backfired
uh,
somewhat.
I do have to say, I think Aston, as well as they've done, I think they got a little bit lucky. Um, I do, from personal racing in Div 6, MJ had a good race, but Vinky, I think, did luck out to an extent. So we'll have to see overall where they do finish. Obviously, next week's a different week, but I think they've done really well for
oh
week
dear.
one. Holding up for the rest of the season's a different challenge. with a lot of
Yeah,
new
for sure.
drivers, obviously with a new team owner, more divisions this season. As you said, 100 points last season was a crazy feat that not many drivers achieved, not many teams achieved. Sorry, in the first week. So to then have 2 teams over 100 and 4 teams on the brink of it, it is completely different this season. So we'll have to see if they can keep it up. Obviously, with the RBs and the team they've got, Alpine with a strong team, Mercedes looking like they've got a strong team. We will have to see how it pans out.
Yeah, so obviously Adam is right. So I'm going to end it off with an apology to Etnival because that's just wrong right here. And
I mean,
he's
I'm currently right.
whatever, bruv. Uh, we are now 2 weeks on the bounce. I think last week we survived 4 weeks in a row of doing podcasts. So hopefully, boys, we'll be able to, and girls, obviously, we'll all be able to keep it up. And we will be seeing you throughout the season. So with that, I bid you adieu.
He's going to do what he did to B4 a few laps off of the wet compound.